joining me from the Calabash Tea and Tonic laboratory. That's what I'm going to call it, because that's where all of the goodness happens. She's in the lab making the special teas. This elephant walk that I purchased, delicious, by the way. And then you sent me some. I thank you for that as well. The elephant walk is all of the things that oolong. Let me welcome. She is the TEO of Calabash Tea and Tonic, Dr. Sunyatta Amen. Hello.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Professor Hunter. How are you today?
I am awesome. I'm awesome. I was just,
Good.
I'm setting the table, because you got to set the table before you provide the meal.
Right.
I feel like we don't just sit down and eat. You set the table.
Right.
Was that a tradition in your home? When you have guests over, my mother had the napkin holders, and you had to fold the napkins just right. We had to get out the good silver. It's like the china. No one has china anymore, but the china.
The bone china.
Yes, the china. We had our Linux dishes and all of the special drawers that they go in.
Westwood, is that what it was? Do you remember Do you remember the special dishes that you only got when you got married?
Oh, yes. Well, yes.
Grandparents would only use them, at that time.
Yeah.
Funny enough, because I'm the first generation of my mother's people to be born in this country, we set the table every day. Like, it wasn't always set with the good china per se, but we definitely had to set tablecloths and napkins and knife and fork and, all of that. Like, it was all super set.
There's something to be said. The analogy to life and setting a table for your meal, or setting a table for the things to prepare the way for the things that you're about to do. I think there's something to be learned for that, and something in the ritual of it. Somebody sent me this long list of things women should do before the new year, and it included don't do all of the chores at once. And I was like, well, if you every day make your bed and straighten up before you go to bed, then you ain't got to, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready, right? So I don't have chores because I make my bed every morning.
Well, I will tell you secretly, I don't always make my bed.
What?
I know, it's crazy. I'm a Taurus, I know. But you know what I've taken to doing, just from a health perspective, is what my, grandparents and great grandparents used to do in the Caribbean, is pulling back all of the covers down to the foot and letting it air out.
Ah, okay.
They say that's good. You let it air out. You let the crumbs from the day before. I don't know.
Why do you have crumbs? Wait, hold on. Why do you have crumbs in your bed? What are you doing?
I don't think those are cookie crumbs. They're just like body
crumbs. Okay.
Fluffing off of things. I just think it's great to do that. Use the pillow, dust out the bed. They say that the bed ends up carrying a lot of dust mites, all kinds of stuff. So it's just good to freshen it out. And then maybe later in the evening or afternoon, I will flip the covers back so that when I get in it.
All right. You have a ritual is the point, right? You have something that you do.
I need structure in my life, like a 12-step program. I need that.
It just makes things easier. I realized somebody surprised me the other day, and I was like, oh, I don't have to worry about straightening up, because it's already, it's
right.
I do the dishes, I don't leave dishes in the sink. I'll, make sure that that's done. Yeah. And then I go to bed. But, then in the morning, there's no dishes. There's nothing to straighten.
Rituals are absolutely important. And in a lot of aspects, we've lost those rituals. It's funny you were saying this, because yesterday I was teaching my nephew, who, if you're Jamaican, you say nephew. I was teaching my nephew that when people come over to your house, because he doesn't have his own apartment, he lives at home, and immigrant children are going to live at home, or the children of immigrant children until they get married, and maybe even after that, right? But I was teaching him that my grandmother taught me if you don't do anything else, if you hear that somebody's coming over your house, or you get the inkling that's that time of year, just clean down, wipe down your guest bathroom. You have pots on the stove that you've used. You have no chance of washing those when people are pulling up saying, oh, I'm 5 minutes from your house. Throw them in the oven. Just throw them in the oven. Just keep those common areas neat. And then people will think well of you. So we have missed rituals. Even eating together is a huge deal. That has a lot to do with mental wellness. there's an article, because apparently we have money for these studies now, modernly, an article that came out that said that children are spending more time on their phones, right? But because they're also missing a set dinner time, even if it was just a Sunday dinner altogether, that the structure of their brains is changing. So the only serotonin they get is from the phone, the games they're playing, scrolling on Instagram, whatever they're doing, as opposed to laughing with each other. Like they may be laughing at something in the phone, but there's no, does anyone remember laughter? There's no laughter with each other. There's no more camaraderie. There's no dinner table games. There are no quizzes that kind of keep everybody sharp, including the older people in your village who need that brain sharpness. It only comes through those conversations and discussing politics and news of the day. They can't get it all from Joe Rogan. These
Yeah,
children, it's a lot of children listening to that.
that explains it. So I watch television. I watch a lot of television. I had recommended in a show that you guys are going to listen to, because we did new content. I had folk come in, we taped some stuff, because I ain't want to have, a whole bunch of best of things you've already heard, especially if you've been rocking with us from the beginning. So you got new content during the holidays.
Right.
But there's a show, I don't know if you're watching Yellowstone with Kevin Costner and them.
I
You
have
probably
watched it. I have
okay.
watched it.
Okay. Now I rock with it because there's some, some things and I'm enjoying that. But as I'm getting into it, I was like, man, these people really have nostalgia with, anyway. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna pop into 1923 because I couldn't watch the 1800 one. I was like, y'all go ahead with the country western motherfreakers and the going across the.
Yeah, I tried.
Yeah.
And the Native American part of me just wouldn't let me rest. The ancestors were over my bed, like, stop this.
Yes. So in the 1923 one starring Helen Mirren and Harrison Ford, and let me just say this, those of you who are in your 70s, stop acting old, stop claiming oldness. Helen Mirren is 77 mother freaking years old. Yes, she's a star and she's rich and all these other things, but her ass ain't sitting down. She ain't gonna stop working. Harrison Ford's dusty ass, who may fall out of planes every other year, is 80. He ain't slowing down. He's starring in stuff and
Is
just
he
like
80?
he's 80. I'm
Oh
like,
my
yo,
goodness.
yes. And they're like, yeah, we're starring in this thing. And it's,
Okay.
it's a hit. It's set in the 1923 is the name of it. So it's set in 1923. And automatically I was like, they're not going to deal with no Black people. Okay. But they are. So I'm probably not going to finish watching the series because I don't care. But the first episode, there's this Native American school. There's a school where they've apparently snatched these children from their homes, right? And it's Catholic nuns and priests, and they're, brutal and horrific, and they're calling them savages. And there's this one scene, Dr. Sunyatta, where they have the girls teaching them how to bathe. And it's so ridiculous as I'm watching. Well, first you get into the tub, you wash under, like literally wash under your arms. Okay, stop, wash down your belly, your private parts, get up, put your towel. And I said, wait a minute, y'all the motherfuckers with trench mouth, smallpox, freaking chlamydia, and all of the syphilis and all of the diseases. These are clean people. They're not smelly people. They weren't. They knew how to clean and put on antiseptic. They knew how to use honey. They knew how to use and that was the thing. So they beat this girl bloody, and they wouldn't let them talk in their own tongue. So at night they would whisper in their language. And one of the girls said, "You got to get honey." She said, "Oh, I'm just going to go out to the beehive because there's no beehives around here and put honey." Like they knew you need to put something on that because the scarring. But these folk, these savages that are trying to deprogram them from their savage language and all this, don't even know basic medicine, don't know basic things.
That's a very interesting observation. There was you probably know because you watch a lot of these things to keep your pulse on things. But I remember maybe about 10, 15 years ago, there was a movie, one of these slave narrative kind of like Great White Hope movies. And I don't know if it was Sissy Spacek. I don't want to malign her because I really love her, but it was someone like that who somehow was a missionary doing work in the South during, pre-Jim Crow time or slavery time. And it was like She was showing people how to bathe. I'm telling you right now, it stayed with me all those years, that I couldn't believe that the narrative is somehow that people of color were dirty, or that we needed that. And then here's the other part, right? If you're working someone from can't see to can't see, of course we're going to be sweaty. Of course we're going to be dusty. Of course and we don't have access to the rivers and streams that we usually would, because that means running away, right? But here's the thing: being clean is just in our DNA, right? You're in the Caribbean, you're going to have 2 showers a day. Somebody asked me the other day, how many showers do I take a day? I don't know why they felt so comfortable to ask me that. They're like, oh, you just smell so good. I'm like, all right, clean it up. But I will say that I told them sometimes twice, sometimes two, most of the time twice. And they couldn't believe it. They themselves, who will remain nameless, said maybe once every 2-3 days, because they don't want to dry out their skin, and they feel like they wait until they feel like they need a bath till it smells kind of like, oh, I need to get in the shower. And I was like, okay, that's one way to do it. And this circles back to our beginning part about our bed linens, about our sleep habits, about our, that if we shower or bathe before we get into the bed, then we have a better chance of the linen staying clean, isn't it? 'Cause
Yes.
what you've been
Yes.
doing all
That's
day.
the assumption, right?
Right. I don't know
You're
what you've been
good.
doing all day. Look, when
Right.
I get out of the bed in the morning and I wash my hands, I see stuff come off of my hands. You know what I mean? And I'm like,
You're like, what was going on? What was I doing at night? Minding my
what was
business.
I doing? Do I want to know or not want to know?
Yeah.
Could be good, could be not good. I don't know. But that cleanliness is definitely a part of us. And when we talk about these kinds of movies that are these narratives of post slavery, or just right during that Reformation, that time period, right up to the 1920s and before, it's just like, what are you talking about? What could that possibly be? Now, sometimes I've talked about how my dad's family is from northern North Carolina, Southern Virginia. It just depends on where they toggle the line, basically, over the years. And when you talked about the children in school and being kidnapped into those schools, that entire population of people had that happen. Are you familiar with Shaw University?
I do know it.
Yeah.
Yes. Not
So
familiar with, I don't know anyone that's gone there though.
it
Or
was,
maybe I do.
yeah, there were a lot of these schools that were set up as schools of higher learning, just like we had school for normal Negro colored folk, or whatever, like just these school for normal coloreds that came up, that became the HBCU, the kernels for those. There was also a way of kidnapping children who are Native, and then accelerating them into these programs where they would probably become teachers of other Native children, but ripping them from cutting their hair off, ripping them from their family and community, encouraging them not to remember old languages, old healing ways, as you mentioned, old herbalism, and instead funnel that way. And a lot of the folks from Shaw then went on to be founders of things like Hampton University. There's a lot of interconnectedness at HBCU world. But yeah,
And
I'm glad you watched
the crazy thing was that it's like the Catholics, this was the priests and nuns. They were in the name of God. Like Shaw was founded by a Baptist minister, white man, of course. Melanie McMahon founded Shaw, and a Baptist. Like, what do you think did his Bible say slaves be subservient to your masters? Like, was he preaching that? I mean, it's fascinating to me. I had a college roommate whose mom studied in England. She's from Bermuda, and when I went to visit them, her mom told a story of how they would gather all of the foreign students, those from Africa and the Caribbean, in a room to teach them how to brush their teeth. And these, she was saying, all of these Black people with these beautiful pearly whites, and y'all with the raggedy, brown, crusty ass teeth are teaching us
a set of British teeth, as they call it, a set of British teeth.
Yeah, y'all gonna teach us how to brush our teeth. Look at our teeth and look at your teeth. But the notion that somehow you don't know better because you must not know how to wash, even though y'all are the ones carrying diseases and giving people the world diseases.
It's an interesting perspective, considering all of that. I mean, our indigenous medicines include things like licorice sticks as our toothbrushes and chew sticks, and neem sticks. I still use a lot of stuff like that. A lot of our staff chews on that all day, and people are like, "You smoking a cigar? What is that?" But it's really it's just the chew stick, and it's an opportunity to keep the teeth, white, and the gums healthy. And
Healthy, yeah.
uh,
Do you sell the chew sticks, Calabash?
licorice
Calabash
sticks,
tea?
yeah, we have licorice sticks.
Okay, let me go in there now because I ain't had one of them in a while.
I'm gonna
No, it's
send
like,
you some. I'm gonna
don't send
send.
me nothing. Let me buy my stuff. Let me buy my own stuff. Dr. Sunyatta is here, 866-801-8255. You can call, ask her anything. Calabash Tea and Tonic. Also want to let y'all know that the Dutch have apologized for slavery.
I
Dutch Prime
saw that.
Minister, his name is Mark Rutte. He apologized yesterday on behalf of his government for the Netherlands' role in slavery and the slave trade. He said, "Today I apologize." It was a 20-minute speech that was greeted with silence by the invited National Archive crowd. Ahead of the speech, a retiree who was born in Suriname said, keep the apology. There's enough of that. It's about the money. The apologies are words, and with those words, you can't buy anything. So they will not be compensating people. That they just apologize. But the Netherlands, the Dutch folk will be establishing a $212 million fund. Really? But you said that this slavery funded, created your economy. This was the thing that catapulted you into success. And your response to that is an apology at a $1,212 million fund when you have made billions and billions of dollars and created systems to be successful for hundreds of years. But that's what they're doing, a $212 million fund for initiatives to help tackle the legacy of slavery. I don't know if that is good.
The Dutch were pivotal, and they had a large rate of culpability in that. And sometimes we think of the Spanish, right? We think of the English, the British. We also really get down into the Portuguese because of Brazil. But the Dutch, when we talk about like the Dutch East India, and the Dutch West India Company, and this goes back to the conversations we've had about tea and spice and sugar, and how that was really the impetus for these forays into the so-called New World, and even into the second world, as they like to call it, right? First world, second world, and the New World. Is because this allowed for free labor to mill back the foodstuffs, those medicinal foodstuffs that are traditional for us, the cacaos, the cocos, the chocolates, the teas, the spices, the allspice, the nutmegs, and sugar. Sugar. So when we talk about that happening, the Dutch led the way, and they had a 277-year run on this. So, we can't underestimate it. In fact, they're the ones who opened the portal to bringing in human cargo to Brazil. So through, Suriname, Guyana, those areas. So, they don't get off like that. Also, their methodology of controlling people of color to work for them was particularly brutal.
I'm actually going to read more, because when I talk about these things, I start with Portugal, because when I went to Ghana, they were the ones that were there first. But yeah, the Dutch gave us the freaking Afrikaners as well. So they were brutal even after that. 1.7 million people were enslaved, and the Dutch enslaved, and the slave trade funded 40% of the country's growth during its quote unquote golden age. And all you want to put to the side is a $212 million fund. No.
Well,
I'm sorry.
They estimate about 600,000 souls were stolen into Brazil, and the Caribbean and other parts of the Caribbean. The Dutch took there, right? Then you got to imagine their descendants, right? So this gets into the conversations about reparations, et cetera. But they didn't stop there, right? That about 1 million, 1.1 million the other way across the Indian Ocean, right? That people kidnapped off the continent and spread that way. So it's deep and it's wide. And I find it interesting that the money that is set aside for this, after all of that, is really supposed to be going to education, like museums and educational projects, to talk about the enslavement that happened, and et cetera. I'm like,
Oh, give us cut the check. Stop it. Yeah, y'all don't have one to read and educate yourselves anyway. So that to me doesn't seem right. We're just living in some strange
well,
times. But we do appreciate the apology, I think, right? I mean, it's better than not acknowledging it at all. At least they're acknowledging it. So
that's
that's
true.
a
But the
start.
activists there, the Black and brown folks who are talking about this issue, asked the prime minister to wait until 2023, which would have celebrated a milestone for them, right? Like, this would have been the equivalent of their, Black History celebration. And he was like, no, I'm doing it now. So
Oh, wow. Yeah, it would have been 150th anniversary.
right. And he's like, nah, I'm good.
Wow.
We're gonna do it now. So I'm not sure why he felt the need to jump that forward, but
Well,
there it is.
so that it's not putting a highlight on the thing. Anyway, I'm so sick of people. Let's move forward. 866-801-8255. Dr. Sunyatta, how are you? How are you? Did I ask you how are you planning for these festivities? Do y'all put up a Christmas tree in the Amen home? Or y'all doing the
We don't celebrate these things. I had the good fortune of having parents who were not very much into traditional American holidays or European holidays. And so I had the good fortune of not having to feel pressured on those things, and also sat a lot of that out, even in school as a kid. I was like, no, I'm good. I don't want to draw the turkey and the pilgrim and because that's not the real story. Or, I was the kid who'd get in trouble. Right. So I go from the kid who'd get in trouble to hanging out with troublemakers like yourself. And this is an opportunity for us to opt out of this dovetails into the previous conversation, this the capitalist nature of the exploitation of our dollar is just kind of transferred through in a middleman. Right now we're working hard for this money, albeit being paid for it, and then we're still handing it over to these multinational corporations who really don't care about us, and are actually the same sets of people, right? who benefited from the privilege of our ancestors' work. So I would say no. That was a long way.
Yeah, no, I got it. I was for years trying to get my parents to not, but
What did they say? What did they say?
They were like, bah humbug, you're Scrooge, So I would show up and participate, but I was like, you do know, I was like little Huey from the Boondocks, the capitalist monster is getting, we could just love each other. We don't need to buy gifts. I don't need anything. And y'all's gifts, anyway, but yeah, it didn't work out for me. I wasn't listened to, but it's all right. Yeah.
It's hard. It's a long pendulum swing, right? Like, it swung one way and it's going to take a while, but so many of us are into that. I'm hearing lots of that from our Nubians over in Nubia. I'm hearing a lot from customers who come in, our tribe members, that they want to get out of, they're working their way out of that. So, we encourage them to do stuff like give a gift card, like give the gift of good health, like stop buying people a bread maker or whatever, right? Like, go ahead and give somebody something that they may need, and you may not know what they need. So get somebody something, a little gift card is cute. Let them buy the tea they want, let them buy whatever they want, and their healing is up to them. You can't control what I always feel like people give you gifts that you don't even want. And in fact, they're going to end up in Goodwill in 5 years, or, on Craigslist or something. Right. So like, let's just don't give me stuff.
Or clutter in a person's home. Yeah. Cause it's hard to throw out something somebody gave you. 866-801-8255. I know it is. Somebody put to the point of, you were talking about being a kid. Somebody posted this joke on Twitter, said, my son got suspended from school again. His teacher asked the class, if February is Black History Month, March is Women's History Month, and June is LGBTQ month, Pride Month, who can tell us what America celebrates during the other 9 months? And she said, my son raised his hand and said, discrimination. perfect. That's perfect. Yes, that's exactly
That's
it. But
nice.
that's where we
And
are.
as jokey as it may be, I mean, the indoctrination is huge, and this affects our well-being. Imagine the levels of stress that so many of us feel at this time of year. It's either that we feel pressured to be somewhere, right? Because it's the holidays, we got to go see this person, be this place, or we need to give things. Or the other thing is that what we do not have, right? This is part, we're taking stock in what we don't have instead of what we do have. And then just being grateful for that time and space. Set the table, have dinner with some folks, have a conversation, laugh, ha ha ha, right? Like have a good time, throw your
Right.
head back and laugh, invite some elders, because those same elders who used to think that presents were important actually just want your company now. They really
That's
just
it.
want to hang out with you. That's the thing they say. You never have time for me. You don't come and hang out.